I want to ask one more loaded question. Don't hate me. And this one is about your philosophy of writing. One of the things you've clearly spent an enormous amount of time on, I assume you think of it as an infinite game, is just getting better at writing, finding your voice, developing your voice, and continuing to push forward with that. So the question I want to ask is if someone, pointed a gun to your head and said, distill down your thoughts about what makes good writing into just a few words or just a few sentences or just a few bullets, what comes to mind? And these can be just a couple of principles. This can be an acid test for good writing versus bad writing. How do you think about your philosophy of good writing?
This is something that has taken me a really long time to understand. But again, once it flipped for me, now there's no going back. Good writing changes the reader. And I think one of the most misunderstood parts of writing is I remember when I was a kid and I wanted to grow up and be a writer, is thinking that it's about you. Thinking that being a great writer is the you show and it's all about how good you write, and it's almost like the whole focus is just pointed back at yourself. And it takes you a really long time to realize that great writing has very little to do with you. It will change you in the process. It can be about you, yourself and your heart and your story and everything can be in it, but it is ultimately about the reader. And so it's almost like you have to go through this process of retraining yourself to go, okay, pretend for a second you're not writing. You walk up to some random person on the street, and you ask them questions and you go, what are you struggling with? And then they have something that they're struggling with that you have an answer to. And you start explaining it to them. It's not about you, it's about you wanting to help that person. And so writing is just the mechanism for scaling that interaction. That's it. And even people that write memoirs about their own lives, or people that write science fiction or mysteries or stories or whatever, ultimately the reason we love those stories is because they're archetypal of ourselves, right? We see ourselves in them. And so, yeah, my whole philosophy now is very, very over rotated on understanding the reader. If you don't know who you're writing for, then your writing is not for anyone. And if your writing's not for anyone, then it's a journal. And if it's a journal, then don't be frustrated when readers go, I'm not paying attention to that, because it's all about you. That's a hard pill to swallow.